Now I'd like to welcome Ryan Brenneman, CTO of MVD. Welcome, Ryan.
It really is great to be here with everyone this morning to talk about the gear that really is critical for a successful live stream. MVD is mobile video devices. We're the exclusive distributor in the Americas for the three brands that you mentioned and that I'll be demonstrating today. That's Magewell, Telycam, and Miri. When you place an order through your authorized reseller or need technical support, we're the ones kind of behind the scenes that take care of that. We're focused on solutions for live streaming, video conferencing, production, IP workflows, and networking. So many of the individuals here today all fit into those categories. Now, I'm the CTO at MVD working with all of our brands, and I also happen to be one of the co-founders of Miri Technologies, which developed one of the solutions that I'll show you later in this session. So with that background out of the way, let's dive right in. And the first category we're going to cover is cameras. Producing awesome live streams requires robust, high quality products throughout your workflow. And the visual quality of your stream starts with the camera. That's why we're excited to be representing Telycam PTZ cameras. So let's do a quick introduction to Telycam with a few slides, and then we'll jump into the live product demo. Now, you may not recognize the Telycam name yet, but they have a very rich history of innovating in the PTZ camera lines. For a decade, they've been designing and building cameras that were sold under some of the best known brands in the broadcast and pro AV industries. And now they're offering their own innovations under their own brand as well. Simply put, there are a lot of PTZ cameras out there, right? So what makes Telycam so special? Well, most PTZ cameras on the market are actually just OEM from a handful of manufacturers. So you'll find essentially the same cameras branded under various names, but Telycam is one of the core manufacturers that designs the cameras from the ground up. They put a strong emphasis on R&D, pioneering new technology implementations, and in fact, they were one of the first to incorporate NDI into a camera. Telycam's goal is to deliver high quality products at pricing competitive with the cost focused brands, thus improving your streams and, as a major emphasis, saving you money. So Telycam has a wide range of PTZ cameras to suit any technical requirements and budget. Drive Plus is their entry level series of 1080p NDI HX cameras for those who are price conscious. And in fact, cameras start at just $799. The Vision Plus series is designed to deliver exceptional performance and quality for pro AV level applications. If you're a small church or deploying PTZ cameras across multiple courtrooms, for example, the Vision Plus series might be the best bang for your buck. And that's especially considering all things in the 4K family of cameras. At the top end of the Explore family delivers high-end broadcast level capabilities at enterprise level pricing. That's where you'll find a product I'm going to demonstrate for you today, the brand new Explore. Explore is Telycam's new top of the line model. So let's cover just a few of the key specifications that you can't really see directly in a Zoom-based webinar. It does 4K 60 at 60 frames per second and features a 1-inch 9 megapixel Sony sensor for exceptional performance, even in low light. It uses phase detection autofocus known as PDAF, which I'll show you shortly. PDAF delivers exceptionally fast autofocus with minimal focus hunting and superior focus precision. The Explore has an incredibly flexible array of AV and IP interfaces. I won't talk about them all, but it's everything from 12G SDI with Genlock to SFP Plus support for fiber connectivity to IP outputs, including NDI high bandwidth, NDI HX, SRT, and more. Its built-in auto tracking is complemented by support for the 3D protocol to deliver positioning data for integration with AR and VR production platforms, such as Brainstorm 3D. So with all that, enough with the slides, let's take a look at the actual camera web's interface. So we'll pull up the web interface now. And as you see, we kind of have everything presented on the screen here for us. And I'm just going to give you an overview of the different settings that we have. So from the main PTZ control, we can adjust our speed, zoom, focus, and call. presets. That's some pretty standard stuff. Where this really starts to get powerful is with a lot of the flexibility that this particular model has. As I mentioned, this is a 1-inch sensor, so we can adjust our exposure settings, set things like gain limit. And I want to show you something here that I think is really groundbreaking in terms of what's available. So I'm just going to zoom up or position the camera up here real quick. We can see that right now the windows are severely overexposed. Well, the 1-inch Sensor Explorer has ND filters. Internal, so we've got 4 stops of ND. So you'll actually see, hang on here real quick, let's turn off auto exposure adjust. So you can see that I can now expose with the internal ND filters, and those cameras are coming back in. That is a feature that is incredible for the price point of this camera. It's just unheard of in this price of a camera to have all of these features built inside, especially the ND filters. Of course, we'll have standard things like the color temperature and white balance adjust, obviously the saturation contrast. So as mentioned, this camera has the ability of being NDI HX. It also has the ability to output a 4K image across its HDMI, the 12G SDI, but you can then also crop on a 3G SDI output. So what we can do is we can set the camera up in what's considered digital priority mode, and that's an IP workflow where you'll have the 12G SDI and 3G SDI cropping feature, or you can put this into full NDI priority, which activates another FPGA, and now you'll have both full NDI output as well as the HX. So really feature packed there. As you'll see here, it does feature gen lock status, and we can adjust things like the tally light brightness and control and other things. So underneath this feature, this is where you'll see if we were going to crop, we can actually set where the crop is going to be on that 3G connection, which is really fantastic. You really get 2 cameras out of 1 when you're using that. So if we look over here at the auto tracking, and we mentioned it auto tracking, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit, but the auto tracking is really fantastic inside of these cameras, and there's really useful tools here. So when we turn on auto tracking, we can set our target position, we can adjust our scaling with a lot of different options. We can lose our when it times out, what does it do? We can also set pan tilt limits. So the upper left, right, and then right down. So what you'll have the ability to do is if there's a stage area, you can prevent the camera from going any further than what it should. And then we also have the blackboard area detect, which is perfect for when a subject walks into frame. It will stop the auto tracking while they're within that pre-designated select area. And then when they leave that, it'll go back to auto tracking, which is really fantastic. From the IP settings, we just see that we have the video encode. We can adjust our profiles as well as our bit rates. Something really fantastic on this camera is it has an XLR input with phantom power. So you have not only the 3.5 millimeter of traditional PTZ cameras, but you also have that mini XLR connection as well with the phantom. So versatility includes things like SRT, RTMP, RTP multicast, and then we can get into our NDI HX and our full NDI settings. We can adjust the name of the camera that comes up into programs and applications. And then I mentioned 3D support. So here we can enable that for the AR and VR applications. From here, we can adjust normal parameters such as DHCP and things of that nature. Really simple to upgrade firmware with Telycam. They've recently announced an all-in-one upgrade package, so you're able to just select the file and upgrade it pretty simply. But this is something that I really love, and I think sometimes the minor details of things really make a difference for our customers, is that you can come in and you can set power schedules for this. You can automatically ramp up when it's going to reboot. Sometimes people like to power the cameras down overnight to conserve energy. That's a big thing in many states that are implementing those priorities now. And so this has the ability for you to be able to schedule that, which is just really fantastic. Additionally, you can set your login and your time settings and things of that nature. But another thing that we didn't really touch on in the slides is the ability for it to record. So it has a micro SD card on the back of the camera. and it enables us to be able to start and trigger the recording for here. So now I have ISO record, and it's something that's really fantastic when you have multiple PTZ cameras to be able to have that safety and surety of being able to record directly onto the camera. And of course, normal things such as formatting. So if I come back over to the control side here, one of the highlights of this is that PDAF. So I'm actually going to zoom in here right now and just watch how fast this focuses. I'm going to go full screen directly from the NDI output of the camera, but this is really incredible of how quick this is able to autofocus when something is as intricate as, you know, leaves from a Christmas tree. So I think this is going to be one of the features along with the NDI that a lot of our users are going to really go bananas over. So I've gone through kind of the web interface of all of that. One of the things that I wanted to mention before we move on to our next solution is a new partner integration that Telycam announced just before IBC. Telycam is now integrated with Iris for cloud-based camera control. So you can control the camera movement, adjust camera lighting, and all the parameters with the image settings and more from anywhere in the world through this Iris interface. And as I mentioned, the Telycam Explorer has built-in auto tracking, which is wonderful, and it's quite good for the integrated auto tracking solutions. But sometimes you need to get more sophisticated auto tracking and auto framing capabilities. And that's best with an external tracking solution. And Iris AI has AI-powered auto tracking. And AI is kind of like one of those buzzwords that everyone throws out. But I'll tell you that their model for training this has had over 70,000 productions to learn the algorithm for this. So they simply are just the best at doing this. And they integrate seamlessly with Telycam cameras now. It really is a powerful combination, especially when you consider the exceptionally fast autofocus of the Explorer camera. It just makes remote production better. Steve, do we have any questions in the chat for the Telycam?
Beth asks, what gain limit do you recommend for this camera?
Well, there's a lot of, let me just share my screen here quick. There's a lot of different limits here. I'm just going to give you, so I'm on auto, so I can back that all the way down. I actually don't need to adjust any gain because there's so much lighting. I generally keep it around the 16 to 18 dB range. As you'll see within the image settings, there is both 2D noise reduction as well as 3D, and I have found this to be fantastic to reduce some of the noise that is there. It really produces a really great image. And with that 1-inch sensor, it allows a lot of light in already. So you typically don't need to bump up the gain a whole lot.
Okay, that's good. All right, well, let's roll on to the next demo.
Wonderful. And I should mention, you know, when we talk about these remote capabilities, Mike Nan, our director of marketing, our chief marketing officer, is actually controlling this deck through a Magewell product using Control Hub. So we not only talk about these products, but we use them in everyday life. And you're seeing that as he is advancing the slides as I'm on the Zoom session using USB Fusion. So I just like to mention that remote control capabilities because it really is powerful as a one-person production being able to do all of this. So with that, the vendor that we're going to focus in the capture category probably doesn't need much of an introduction, but I'll do a quick recap of what Magewell offers for anyone who is not familiar with them yet. And then I'm going to show you Magewell's newest capture product. And since we have time, I'll expand this category to cover content with some of the new features into the Director Mini product solution. So Magewell was originally best known for their video capture devices for bringing signals such as HDMI or SDI into software-based production tools. Over the years, they've expanded their product lines into new categories such as streaming encoders, NDI encoders and decoders, presentation solutions like USB Fusion device, and complete production solutions like the Director Mini. Magewell's popularity has been fueled by delivering incredibly rich feature sets and robust reliability, but at affordable pricing, all while listening closely to user feedback. The USB Capture family has earned its reputation as the easiest, most reliable way to bring AV signals into software over USB for live streaming, video conferencing, and medical imaging, and of course, way more than that. Previously, Magewell's top USB capture model, the USB Capture HDMI 4K Plus, could do 4K resolution at up to 30 frames per second with 420 chroma subsampling. If you wanted to do more than that, such as 4K at 60 frames a second, you needed one of their internal PCIe capture cards. That is until now. The product line has now been expanded with the new model, the USB Capture HDMI 4K Pro. It offers everything that users love about the existing USB Capture HDMI 4K Plus model and adds the ability to capture video at up to 4K at higher frame rates with better chroma precision. When used with a compatible computer that can transfer 20 gigabits per second over a USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 interface, the USB Capture HDMI 4K Pro can capture 4K 60 inputs at 60 frames a second with 444 chroma fidelity. You can also use it on computers with lower USB standards, but of course the resolution, frame rate, and subsampling would be limited to the host USB connectivity and operating system. So taking a look at this device, I think a lot of people have seen this really small, compact. It looks almost identical to the earlier USB Capture HDMI 4K Plus. It has HDMI input and loop through. It also has 3.5 millimeter jacks for analog audio in and out. And you can also see that it has a bit small here. Let me go big on the screen. So you can see that it has a USB-C Type-C connection for its 20 gigabits USB 3x2 Gen 2x2 interface. And with that, as a lot of people note, we have threaded screws here for the USB-C to lock in securely. Like all USB capture models, the new device is plug and play with driver-free setup and UVC compatibility and automatic detection of the input signal format. But there's also an SDK available for third-party software developers to access the unique features of the device. So in addition to the USB Capture HDMI 4K Pro release from Magewell, shortly after IBC, they released a major new firmware upgrade for Director Mini all-in-one production and streaming system. Version 3.0 is their biggest update yet, with more than 50 enhancements to its input format support, powerful production features, and remote control capabilities. So let's pull up the Director Mini now so you can see some of these super cool features. So we'll just bring up the Director Mini. One thing I should mention is that all these devices have web interfaces that you can access just over its IP address. And so really simple to be able to access this device for a number of different things. Here on this home screen, we can take a look at the status and the name of it, check its connections down at the bottom. We can also check our HDMI inputs. And I think, that's really handy to be able to troubleshoot things. But I think something that's really powerful is that you can actually control this device through the Produce tab. And this is where we have the ability to be able to do switching, overlay graphics, pull up our audio mixer, activate replays, the background music, our shortcuts. We can even bring up live comments right here from the web interface. And so this is a powerful platform to be able to control this device. And in fact, with Control Hub, simply put, you could run this production remotely from anywhere in the world as well, as we have several of our customers doing, such as Livestream Las Vegas. So the web UI is an excellent way to be able to manipulate this. We can set encode parameters, our streaming destinations, but also take a look here where we can load and see our album for our recordings, our instant replay clips, and our screenshots if we have any. But really fantastic, I can click this instant replay and download, allowing somebody else to be able to log into the web interface and upload these replays really quickly to social media. Additionally, I have the ability to upload pre-recorded video content or maybe logos for the scoreboard or something such as the background music. The System tab is also fantastic. So we can come in here, we can rename the unit, set various features like the Ethernet and the Wi-Fi. I can also activate my control hub. I can take a look at what my firmware is. It'll automatically check to see if there's firmware that's available. And then if I need any troubleshooting, it'll generate a full list of logs. So I want to cover a couple more things when it comes to this, because there are so many features that have come in here. So if we're taking a look at the Produce tab, look at all of these different inputs that we can have available to you. So of course, the two HDMI inputs, webcam over USB, pre-recorded video clips, but it also can bring in up to 3 mobile phone cameras with the free Director Utility application. And when you bring in those cameras, you actually have access to all the lenses, tally light, set focus, and things of that nature. One of the things that we recently also enabled was this ability to bring in a web page. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you here. So when I put this in, I can put in a URL, or I could pull up the Director Mini's landing page. So we'll go ahead and load that from this screen here. And now I can activate this, and as you'll see, I can actually navigate this screen. So we will come here, and I can move this just like it's on the screen. So if we're taking a look at the Director Mini screen itself, I'm just manipulating this with my hand. I can close out, and then I can switch back and forth to any number of these scenes. So really powerful way to be able to pull up content. We're actually seeing people who are using this to pull up wildfire maps and then navigate that in real time right from the device itself, which is a really interesting way to interact with people. So with that, let's go ahead and pull up another camera, and let's do an NDI stream. We'll search my network for the NDI, and here is my camera. Here we go. So now you're seeing me probably on a little bit of a slight delay because we're coming through the web interface for this, and the audio is going directly from my production system. But you can see that I can activate this. I have the ability for PTZ camera controls, which is a really fantastic way to be able to control a lot of the cameras that we have here. So the other thing that we've added is the ability to overlay HTML graphics for web, but we've also given the ability, and I'll pull up this here, we'll come to our graphics section, and you'll see here that we have all of these options available for you so we have these pre-built titles, we have lower thirds that you can pull in, you can bring in animated text, a number of different scoreboards, even specific to sports, but we've also added the ability to overlay NDI alpha layers from things like Easy Worship and Pro Presenter. So a really easy way to bring in a lot of those different aspects. You can even bring in a web page as an overlay, which I think is really cool. The bullet list function allows you to bring in items and then stack them based on time settings. So it's got a fully built-in graphic processing engine, which is really fantastic. The next thing that I wanted to, well, actually, I'll show you something here real quick, because I think this is super neat. So if we do a countdown timer, you'll see that this changes color at 10 seconds. And then this is also going to go switch into the HDMI 2. So we'll see this actually make its transition. So really easy way to be able to run a production on a unit as compact and small as this. So let me go back to the screen sharing here, because I want to pull up something that was also announced that I think is really interesting. We've added the ability now for Elgato Stream Deck support. So this is a way for you to utilize Stream Deck for a lot of your devices. And I'm just going to show you all of the options that kind of come through. So as you'll see, my Stream Deck is controlling my teleprompter, but now I have another page set up for Director Mini. So as I click on HDMI 2, you'll see this changing back and forth. But we also have the ability for audio. And so if I come over here to a blank screen, it really is simple as drag and dropping. So I can drag on my HDMI scene. I can tell it what I want it to go to. It will automatically adjust this. And so if I click the button for HDMI 2, it just made that switch for me. The other thing that we can do is we can drag on dials. So if I want to adjust my audio parameter. So I'm going to bring up the audio mixer here so you can see this. We'll bring up the screen again. And now you can see that I can make finite controls. You know, with a touchscreen device, sometimes dialing in decibel by decibel can be a challenge. But now I have that rotary dial to be able to do that for me. And there are so many options available here. You can see that we can do scenes, graphics, all of our transitions, but we can also trigger recording or the stream. We can adjust PTZ cameras and call presets. We can also activate our shortcuts, which I think is a really fantastic feature. As you'll see here, we can even set up multiple actions. So I've got 4 actions that are set up to one button. And so it's going to switch the scene to HDMI 1. It'll trigger the recording. And in 2.5 seconds, it's going to turn on the lower third graphic. So those are ways that you can do things efficiently and effectively when you're just a single person, which is, sometimes can be a real challenge, right? That's just doing a lot as one person. So before we move on to our last product category, connectivity, I'll answer a couple of your questions about Magewell's capture and production solutions. Steve, is there anything in there that we can go over?
Okay, and then a question from Paul here. From a pro gaming content creator perspective, what features of Magewell's 4K capture cards are most beneficial and unique to Magewell to capture fast-paced gaming action, and how do they impact the final video output?
Sure. I think capture, it's a set standard and spec, right? We're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to what we can capture. What we are doing is giving Magewell's known history of reliability. The fact that we offer FPGA processing on all of our devices, it has a capture utility tool, which allows you to make finite adjustments on the FPGA, which reduces the strain on the computer itself. You're already asking the PC for a lot of gamers to do many things. They're running OBS or vMix or some other application on top of it. And when you're asking that to then process the image too, it just takes away, and it depends on like what your graphics card is, but having the FPGA on the device and being able to make those changes directly on the FPGA before it lands on your GPU or CPU can really make a difference for a lot of people when it comes to the gaming. We've heard that a lot from gamers who really appreciate having that flexibility. So let's talk about connectivity now. So even the most compelling content can be derailed if you don't have stable and fast enough internet, Ethernet networking to deliver it. If you've been streaming long enough, we've all had it happen where the internet goes down in the middle of your live stream, or if you're supposed to be streaming from a venue and they either can't provide you the level of connectivity you need, or they want to charge you an arm and a leg for it. So Miri Technologies is a new technology startup focused on enabling faster, more resilient internet from anywhere. The origin of Miri and our first product, the X510 dual cellular bonding router, came from when I was working in live production. I was live streaming a government official, but at the last minute, they moved the production control room where I was going to be working out of to the interior of the hotel. And this new location had horrible cellular connectivity, which was needed for my bonded encoder. But the venue wanted to charge me thousands of dollars to get a wired Ethernet to that room. And it was more than I was even getting paid for the job. So I heard of Speedify channel bonding app. I decided to give it a try on my streaming computer. So I combined my poor performing cellular data with the venue's public Wi-Fi behind a captive portal. And that's something that I just couldn't use the bonded encoder. It couldn't defeat the captive portal. And by downloading Speedify, it saved me for that project. So I started thinking about what could be achieved as Speedify technology was integrated directly into a hardware network router. And that really is the idea that became the Miri X510. So we launched the X510 at NAB New York last month, although some of you probably have seen previews of it at the Magewell booth at various shows of the last year. We frankly used the device in prototype form to give us better internet at our trade show booths, not only at Magewell, but also at Telycam. And Magewell helped Miri develop the router. We know that Magewell is synonymous with reliability, and that's something that's really important to us as well. So the Miri X510 can combine Wi-Fi, gigabit Ethernet, satellite connections such as Starlink, and mobile data connections to enable faster speeds and robust reliability. Automatic failover ensures seamless connectivity even if one of the internet service provider fails. If this connectivity isn't enough, you can increase bandwidth even more with Speedify's patented pair and share technology, which I'll talk more about in just a bit. I mentioned that the router has integrated Speedify technology, and if you're familiar with network bonding, it involves endpoints like the X510 as well as a server. The X510 requires Speedify subscription for bonding through their servers that are offered globally and worldwide, but we include the first 3 months of their subscription free with the router. So one other thing that I'll mention now, and then you'll see when I show you the router, is that it has slots for 2 optional NPF batteries. These are the same batteries that you'd use on your Sony camera or Magewell Director Mini, and it allows the X510 to be used as a portable router in the field. Unlike dedicated video contribution systems that bond connections, the X510 is not limited to just delivering video and audio and is not tied to any particular codec or streaming protocol. It supports any type of data from financial transactions to live streams in any or current or future formats. And I'll pause here and just say that a lot of our devices want to be connected to the internet in production. Magewell's Pro Converts or Ultra Encode, these things can all be controlled from the cloud from anywhere remotely. And so when your network becomes bonded with better connectivity, you get all the benefits of every single device on your local production network having internet connectivity. You get the benefit of being able to monitor the live stream and the chat, and all of that is going through a more robust connection. So with the robust connections that I kind of highlighted about, it can actually bond up to 7 connections on the physical hardware. That includes integrated 5G and 4G modems, 2 RJ45 gigabit Ethernet ports, Wi-Fi 6 connectivity, and 2 USB ports for optional modems. The SIMs are not included for the 4G and 5G, so you can choose your own carrier. And I actually think that that's a benefit. You can negotiate whatever tier you want for the data, whatever providers you want. And so we give you that flexibility. We're not tied into that. Now, of course, we do recommend getting SIM cards from 2 different carriers. So if one carrier network goes down, you can still use the other one. The ability to bond 4G LTE and 5G helps overcome network congestion in crowded venues. And I'll say that one of the things that we have seen is when the networks become congested, a lot of times that's on the 5G. And so having the 4G modem locked in does give you an advantage for this router. And we're seeing that right now with a partner who's at Live Las Vegas right now for an RV show. And he's seeing exceptional performance on the 4G side. So I mentioned Speedify's pair and share feature. This lets the X510 share data connections from up to 20 mobile devices on the same network via the Speedify app. So in that respect, you can really combine up to 27 links, which is kind of crazy to think about. So let's take a look at the device's web interface and see why the X510 is so special. So let me just zoom in here real quick so you can get a good look at this. Much like many of the other web interfaces, we have this main screen where we can take a look at the device name, its serial number, its hardware. But we can also take a look at the data connections, confirm their connection, what their IP address, and things of that nature. So the router basically has 2 sides, as we like to say. It's going to have its device's web interface side, where we're able to pull up things like WAN, and we can dive into more details about these connections. So we can see on the 4G that we're connected to the T-Mobile. We can check out its values for its strength and connection, our Wi-Fi, the 5G devices, and so on and so forth. On the other side of the router is its local area network. So we can set things like the IP address and range. We can also assign our Wi-Fi radios to either connect to something like you saw, my house network, but we can also trigger this to serve in access point mode. So on the 2.4 radio, it's distributing its own SSID for me to connect to. I can also view all of my DHCP leases and the names if they're associated, and set up static leases. So the Speedify tab is where things get really fun, and I'll zoom out here just a bit so you can see more at once. But within the Speedify section is where we're able to take a look at our data connection, monitor our outgoing bandwidth, so you can see that we're moving data back and forth. And here is where this starts to get pretty awesome. So with each adapter that you've seen on the WAN side, we now have features within Speedify to determine what we want to do with it. So if I come down and I'll click the 4G here, we can see some basic details about T-Mobile, but then we're also able to set priorities. So this is where we can take a data connection, set it to be locked onto primary, secondary, maybe a backup source, or maybe that SIM or device we never want to connect to unless we've manually configured it. But of course, we always recommend the automatic mode. Now, some things have data caps, and so I have a Starlink Mini with a 50 gigabit plan, and when I want to use that, I can simply come down here and I can select 50 gigabits, and then what happens? Either I stop using it or I want to rate limit that. And so this will give the users the ability to be able to set this up and take control of their data plans as well to ensure that there's no high overages. So something that I think is really fantastic, and this is what sets this router apart, period, point blank. This is a feature only found, it's patent and patented by Speedify, is this pair and share. So when the internal or physical data connections are not enough, pair and share is what gets you through. I recently talked with a parent who live streams games, and they don't always have fantastic internet at the venues. And so if anyone has the Speedify app on their phone, all they have to do is connect to the router's network, and they instantly can share the data from the phone into the production. And it makes a difference for this parent who wanted to live stream volleyball, but there was just nothing available. There was no public Wi-Fi to access. So they needed to aggregate and join all of these connections together. And so as we'll look at on the screen, we can see that I have my iPhone as well as my Samsung phone. Those are active connections into the router, and it will use those automatically as I need it. So I can start a bandwidth test on this, and it just is going to pull a speed test on the device. And so we're connected to the Northern Virginia, and so we're seeing, 462 megabits for a download. And then let's take a look at what the upload might look like for us here. So 346 megabits. I'm pretty confident that we could do a pretty successful live stream with those numbers. So as I mentioned, the server that I'm connected to, there's also the ability to access other countries. So there are Speedify servers all around the world. And so you can see we can pop in here to Italy, and we've got one at these two different locations, but also, places like Australia and the EU, a number of different servers. And you can kind of set what you want this to do, either to the fastest public. The other thing that I'll mention is that Speedify has the capability to stand up your own private dedicated server. Not only do we have plans for kind of this shared server, but we also have plans available should you need dedicated things. That's great for port forwarding needs for production, but quite literally, Speedify will also build you a private server if you need that, and you're at that type of level. Those are things for like the three-letter broadcast agencies that are interested in housing their own instance of Speedify on their own servers that they have control over. So with that, we can make adjustments to the setting. We can adjust the bonding mode. This is really interesting. So Speed automatically negotiates everything you need. When you're on redundant mode, all packets go across every connection. And so when you have multiple fiber connections, that may be advantageous to basically guarantee that everything gets there. And then because Speedify is a VPN, you have the option for encryption, which is enabled on by default. And something else through Speedify, sometimes you just need to bypass certain things. So for example, inside my house, we weren't able to get onto Paramount. It was detecting the VPN. So I just bypassed Paramount Plus right through the web UI, and then everything was good to go. So finally, with that, we have this side of the device where we can rename it. It has a USB net, which the front of the device allows you to hook up a USB cable, and then you're able to access the device, basically across the USB. It guarantees a connection to the device. Something else that we just did, you're seeing an early preview of, we are now making the RJ45 connections, both WAN and LAN. So in theory, you could have 4 WANs, or maybe you don't need any WAN because you've got cellular connectivity and you want all of the RJ45s to be LAN. This is a feature that's coming up here real soon. Finally, we have the ability to check online for firmware. This is through an AWS server hosted out of the US and Ohio. And then we have the ability to access logs and export anything for that. So that's a lot going over the router. We've been using the router ourselves over the past year. And during our testing, we have a couple different examples to highlight the benefits of the X510 in various use cases. Our first example, or real world testing, you could say probably stress testing, was a stream for Mr. Beast in Kai Cenat on July 3rd. Many people had seen the router at trade shows. One of those was Mr. Beast's production team at Vid Summit. So they were, kind of aware of that we were developing this solution. They were doing a live stream that basically replicated Kai Cenat's house in the middle of a field in North Carolina. They started building the house. The house is under construction, this room, and then they realized, like, oh gosh, there's no data connectivity there. So they called Speedify on July 2nd. Speedify called me, and I basically drove into the late night to get there with the routers. And we ended up bonding 2 Starlinks, the 4G, 5G SIMs. We had 2 hotspots connected. We were using parent share with phones, and kind of like, an off-the-wall story is, as all teams are monitoring everything that's happening, and we're chatting back and forth because there were hundreds of thousands of people watching this live stream. This was a zero-fail venture. Somebody was standing over top of the main Starlink. And so we started to see the main Starlink drop. All the other data connections ramped up. A unique thing about this particular stream is they built this set identical to Kai Cenat's room. And so that also meant the streaming computer was OBS 1080, 32 megabits. They had, we weren't using anything like SRT. It had to be identical for what he used. In fact, they were even like taping the chair exactly how his chair was shaped. His chair was taped. So at the end of the day, we were inside of an RV monitoring the entire live stream, the comments, making sure everything was good, chatting with our team all over the bonded connection. But we also needed to stream with 0 packet loss. And I'm happy to report that until the house blew up, we had 0 packets lost, 0 buffering issues. They were really blown away at what we were able to accomplish on such short notice. We also used the Miri router for our friends at Ecamm. So they have a creator camp up in Amesbury, Mass, and they historically have problems with the internet. They were live streaming Creator Camp TV from a brewery right across the street, a brew pub. And this was built in the 1800s. It's in a valley. It's got like 7 layers of brick. It's just not great for cellular connectivity. And as most venues say, they're like, hey, we have great internet. You can just connect to our Wi-Fi. Well, those things fail when you get, more than 50 people connected to the same network. Also, they're typically testing this out by doing web browsing. They're not going to be live streaming. They don't know when they say like great internet connectivity, that's not for our purpose, right? So we were able to use the Miri router to stand up the connection. And in fact, we actually watched their main network inside that brew pub completely go offline when many people were joining it for the guest network because there really wasn't great cell connectivity in there. So all of the other connections ramped up. We kept Creator Camp live through Ecamm software using a Mac their entire shows. So they were blown away by the router. And then finally, for the past major several trade shows, the X510 has powered the Magewell and Telycam booths at NAB, Infocom, and IBC. And in fact, recently at NAB New York, where other booths couldn't even load a web page, we were sending video from Las Vegas to New York via SRT, and we played that both days without any issues. So those are just a few examples of how our team has used it. and how the device is being delivered now. And we expect to hear more great stories. In fact, from Clint in Las Vegas, at the RV show, he's reporting back that they're having phenomenal success at the convention center right now.
Great, great. Yeah, so let's get right into it. We have one question here from Paul about the Miri. Paul asks, is the Miri X530 router being used in hotels and other hospitality venues as a primary internet service or for streaming live events?
Certainly for streaming live events. Look, as I mentioned, I come from production world. Before I started working at MVD, I own my own production company, and I'm still heavily involved. So with Samsung and Harbin Kardon, I'll be at CES myself, producing that show for them again this year. This will be the third year that I'll be there as a technical director. So there is, I have this background, and this is where the router was really born out of.
Thanks so much to you, Ryan, and thanks to everyone who joined us today. Thanks, Ryan.
See ya. Thanks so much.